Tsunami warnings issued following a 7.6 magnitude earthquake. It struck off the country's northeastern coast about 30 miles below sea level.
This video shows shaking in stores and apartments. Local reports say that the nuclear power plants are conducting safety checks now. The government has issued evacuation orders for tens of thousands of people who live near the coastline.
In this region, a massive earthquake is pretty much inevitable. This is the Cascadia subduction zone. It's one of the top hazards on the planet.
Now we're seeing how God spoke about the earth and the earthquakes, which I prophesied a few weeks ago. These are not just earthquakes as has been prophesied before, that would bring destruction or to be judgment, and that very well could happen. The point I'm saying is there are also earthquakes that will bring forth revivals or a restoration in the economic world.
Welcome to Analysis. My name is Danae Clement Petrushka, and Christy Despontaine will be joining me today. And so welcome, Christy. And, you know, recently I've been watching the volcanoes, and anybody who follows my social media or watches Code Breakers Live, you know I've been looking at those volcanoes because of things my dad prophesied. But what we've been seeing this past week or so are some pretty big earthquakes. And we started to reflect on what Dad prophesied about earthquakes, because he wasn't really someone who prophesied those kind of things very often. But when he did, it was usually in reference to other things that God was going to be doing. And you know, God did this often with my dad, in that a volcano or an earthquake or a national disaster or things like that would be a sign that we had reached in time, on the timeline, a season in which other things he prophesied were beginning to come to pass too. So again and again and again, when he would prophesy about an earthquake, and if you think about it in the Bible, earthquakes were often accompanied by a revival or something great, something that would shake, maybe not even great, but that would shake the world and God's people. And it was often the things that we would be looking for, especially today, is the new energy, new source of energy, death to debt, which is a big deal, and the revival or Jesus revolution that he prophesied. Those prophecies, you know, my dad wouldn't date set. And Christy, you know this. Dad would not say a particular date ever. It was very, very rare for him to do that. But God would show us we've reached that season, or we're on that place in the timeline because there's an earthquake or there's a volcano. If you remember in the seasons prophecy that we covered quite a bit last year, everything was revolving around volcanic activity. Yes. And you know what's interesting, Christy, is I've also found that with the earthquake and volcanic activity, that always comes up when I look into new energy. Yeah. So anytime I start looking at what my dad prophesied about new energy, people I've talked to, like Walter Blagage, for instance, and some others, they often refer to the volcano and the earthquake, and the gases and how things can be turned into energy. And so it's very interesting how it's all intertwined together. Now, there was a pretty big earthquake in Japan again. And, you know, we remember Dad did prophesy the earthquake in 2011.
Yes, he did.
An earthquake in Japan. So here we are in 2025, and again, we see a very large earthquake.
Yes.
And I know you know a little bit about this earthquake
Yeah, so
in Japan, Christy.
just a couple of headlines for everybody. You know, there was a powerful 7.5 magnitude earthquake that struck Japan's northeast, and tsunami warnings were issued. Then we see that about 90,000 residents were ordered to evacuate, and tsunami warnings of up to 3 meters. And then there was a quake registered that was an upper 6, and it was strong enough to make it impossible to stand, which is crazy. And Reuters noted that it's the same area that was devastated in the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. And you know, Donna, I was living with your parents at the time when your dad had this prophecy, and I know I've told the story before, but I'll never forget it. I was standing in the kitchen in the old house, and your dad had been in the garden. He was always coming in there. I was generally the first one awake after him. And I was, you know, I would make him coffees in the morning and whatever. And he came in and he looked pale and he looked shaken. And I said to him, I called him Prophet. I said, Prophet, are you okay? He did that thing where he did a big sign. He like put his hands on that like kitchen island thing in the middle of the kitchen. And he just looked and he said, I've seen an absolutely terrible earthquake that's going to happen and hit Japan. And it's going to damage a lot of people. And I went, okay, like, I didn't know what to say. And this was like right at the beginning. I think it was either the end of 2010 or the beginning of 2011, but it was before he actually, like, we had a broadcast later that day and he ended up prophesying about it more then. But I was there inside the kitchen and I was like, do you want me to make you coffee? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I could see the physical, like, it was like he was physically carrying this heavy weight that what he'd seen, right? So we look at this and we know, like you were saying, earthquakes are not random. Luke 21:11 says there will be great earthquakes in various places. And we see that they often accompany, like you were saying, prophetic seasons. And we have seen rising global seismic activity, both physical and spiritual. And there's a link that we want to play now about the Northwest region and earthquakes, which is really interesting. So let's go to that video now, and then we're going to come back to a prophecy of a dream that your dad had, like a prophetic dream that he had, which we're going to read to everybody. So let's go to that video now about the Northwest region.
Why is the Cascadia subduction zone so dangerous? And when will the next big one happen? The Cascadia subduction zone is a major fault line that spans Vancouver Island in Canada to Northern California. But it's not really a line at all. It's a crack where 2 massive tectonic plates meet. It's where one of the largest earthquakes in the history of North America happened, more than 325 years ago in January of 1700. The earthquake had an estimated magnitude of 9, and it caused a tsunami. A graveyard of trees that fell victim to flooding are still in the area, but the subduction zone has been pretty quiet ever since. The last magnitude 9 earthquake on Earth was caused by a subduction zone known as the Japan Trench in 2011. It spurred a tsunami and caused widespread devastation, including a nuclear disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. Subduction zones produce the biggest earthquakes in the world. They happen where one tectonic plate is sliding down another plate.
In Cascadia, you have one plate diving down beneath another. This section gets locked, and it pushes this part up. When the fault ruptures, when the amount of stress overcomes the friction, it bounces back, which lifts up the water above it and causes that water to flow out in all directions. And that water flowing out in all directions is the tsunami.
It's kind of scary.
It is a little bit scary. Magnitude 9, when you start getting to a magnitude 9, that's pretty intense. Now, this one in Japan was 7.5. Yes. I did see some video of it, and it was pretty intimidating. And then I know the tsunami, that's a genuine issue that happens, you know, for obvious reasons. But it can do a lot of damage.
Yes.
And so, very interesting. But Dad had a dream, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And we don't have the actual audio of this, so I'm going to have to read it to you. So just imagine it's Kim saying this, because he is the one who said it, but I'm going to read you something from April 1st of 2005. And Kim said this: I had a dream 2 weeks ago, and it was a clear dream about the state of Washington and Oregon. It was a very clear dream of an earthquake. It was so strong and powerful it could be seen in both states. When I woke up, I had been present with Barry and with Sean, and I knew that this had to do with a spiritual thing. it was not just an ordinary dream, I would know if it is. And we had already planned on being here at this time. And the Spirit of the Lord said to me, I want you to tell the people, the few that will listen, that there is coming one of the greatest shakings in the Northwest, even though you have had shakings before. It's going to take 2 states to deal with a powerful spiritual force. But this shaking is not something in the natural, but it will be felt in the natural as well. But it is something that will start in the spiritual realm. We've prophesied earthquakes before. We prophesied the Northridge earthquake, even the month it was going to happen. But what was greater, what was going to take place after the earthquake. And God said to me, tell the people that there is going to be a shaking, that there is going to be an earthquake that is going to bring about or destroy some of the buildings. I'm not talking about natural buildings now, but buildings that don't need to be upright, buildings that need to be brought down. I'm talking about a religious system that has had so much control. And God said, you must tell them the things that can be shaken will be shaken, and that which cannot be shaken will stand firm. And you're going to be surprised what is going to be shaken before, because I've got some good news for you. God is raising up a brand new group of people with the brand new resurrection power. And the shaking is going to bring about a generation of prophets starting in the Northwest. And the Spirit of the Lord says, if you would understand Oregon and Washington, what the prophet is saying to you, you will understand that the miraculous will begin to take place without the slightest effort. There will be water coming from the rock without you having to strike it. There will be eternity being released in your businesses, homes, and in every aspect of your life. You know the promises you've got. I will begin and set you as an example to the rest of the nation, because your economy is going to rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, and it will be a spectacular thing and a supernatural thing. Therefore rejoice, for this night it has begun. I want you to understand this, Oregon, and I want you to understand this, Portland, that the prophets are coming and that they're being raised up from the soil and from this place. The prophets are coming. The prophets are coming. In America, you must embrace them. There will be those that hate them. But I say to you, the prophets that are coming, to Larry King, to Oprah Winfrey, to Regis, it's going to go all over the secular world. This is the good news, says the Lord. Now, there's a scripture here that he was referencing, Donna, Hebrews 12:27, which says the things that can be shaken will be shaken, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. And I find that incredibly interesting, because he always paralleled what was going on in the spirit with the natural, always.
Well, that's actually what I was about to say. Is it's reflective. It's like a reflection. You know, even in there he says, not just in the natural, but in the spiritual as well. And for those of us who have been on this journey, especially the last 10 years without my dad, one thing we've definitely seen is the manifestation of that.
Yes.
For instance, look at the region that he's addressing. He's addressing Portland, Oregon. Okay, what is going on in Portland, Oregon now? I mean, they had what was it called? Chaz. It is so liberal in that region. And Chaz was the area in, I think it was Portland, where they cut off the cops and everything, and they had their own little had their own laws and stuff. They have something similar in, where is it? I think Denmark.
Probably.
And so, but we've seen spiritually what has gone on in that region. It's been one of the worst areas. You know, Antifa is very, very busy over there. I don't know if you've ever heard of Portland Andy, but Portland Andy is a journalist who was attacked by Antifa back, I can't remember if it was 2020 or before that, but he actually had a stroke. And I've followed him ever since then. He's very, very good. But he reports on, what is his name? Andy No is his name. No, Portland Andy's another guy. But Andy No, he's the journalist. And he was recently with President Trump and reporting to, it was a few months ago, but they had he had a bunch of different journalists with him. It was on the news. But Andy No was there. I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Portland Andy. That's not his name. But he was coming from that region, Seattle. The reason I'm bringing this up is because if you remember, Dad prophesied 9/11 from Dearborn, Michigan, which is where you have the largest Muslim population in the country. And from that region, he prophesied 9/11 and the beast of the east, which is what we're beginning to see now. And so over large spans of time, when you can reflect back on the prophecies, you begin to see this pattern. God would send my dad to the region that would need that word the most. And so we understand now in 2025 why God would have sent Dad to Dearborn, Michigan to prophesy 9/11. And the same, I think, is going on here, this shaking that's happening. So we see that spiritually, but then we have an actual earthquake as well. And so, whenever I am watching his prophecies, when I'm paying attention to not just what he's prophesying, but where is he? Where is he prophesying from? And a little bit of when, but not as much. It's if he's put his boots on the ground somewhere, as he did in Ukraine in 2014, and look at the situation with Ukraine and Russia. Now he prophesied all about it, but God sent him to Ukraine, which at the time was, why is he going to Ukraine? We didn't really understand. And so that is very important, because spiritually, what is going on in the Northwest region of the United States of America, and what is God planning to do? He's seeing the economy rising. We're under President Trump right now. This first year has been difficult because there was a lot of damage done in the 4 years of the Biden administration. One of those things being, things like inflation. So we aren't at a place yet where the things that Trump has been doing are reflecting in the economy. So it's very hopeful going forward that as he's prophesying a shaking, God's going to deal with religion and the religious spirit. God's raising up a new kind of people, a new group of people that are going to be, much as he did with the warriors of the new millennium, for instance. And so with all of that, then you see the promise of the economy as well. And if we're sitting today in 2025, almost the end of it, we understand where we are in the timeline as far as Trump. We're not seeing the fruit of his labor yet, but we will. I do believe that 2026 and 2027 are going to be fantastic. A lot of prognosticators are freaking out a little bit now, but I do think that we are yet to see that incredible economy. I know everybody, as soon as Trump became president, we were all expecting it but he's having to clean up a lot of mess and deal with an unbelievable amount of opposition. But I'm feeling very hopeful anyway, even though I don't, you see an earthquake, you don't want people getting hurt. You don't want anybody certainly getting killed and the damage, all those things. But I do know that he wasn't one to prophesy an earthquake to frighten people. There's a much deeper meaning to what is being prophesied and what is occurring. But I'd love to hear what you think, Christy.
Well, Donna, I think obviously the specific thing about Japan, it's always stuck with me because I was there for it, and it really impacted me. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I was in Nashville with your parents when the earthquake actually struck and all the different things happened. But I know there's a prophecy that we've got of your dad's, and kind of like, this, we'll talk about the 2011 fulfillment of it, but I think that hearing what he had to say there would be really important, and then we can come back to my little minor thoughts. But let's go to that prophecy now. This one nation shall experience what they predicted for this nation and for this West Coast, an earthquake which will take us out. Your prayers will save many lives regarding this earthquake in Japan. This speaks of this incredible integration and this one fusion of Japan and China. A lion has roared, the Lord has spoken, and who can but prophesy? Just for a moment between Japan and China and Korea, God is going to do something big. Now, Donna, that was from July 8th of 2006 from Hollywood, where your dad prophesied that. And then we go ahead and realize that what he'd prophesied then was fulfilled in 2011, because of what took place in Japan, but he'd also seen what was going to take place in Asia. And Psalm 46, 2-3 says, though the earth be removed, though the mountains shake, God is our refuge. And we see this, you know, it was in 2006 that he warned of a coming earthquake in Japan. And then we see all these years later, you know, in 2011, the earthquake and tsunami just devastated the nation. And many who followed your dad have known that this is like basically a direct fulfillment. And even what he said there, your prayers will save lives. We know that that happened. And now even in 2025, Japan is shaken again, which is reminding us that God is speaking to the nations. And I mean, you know, obviously I'll let you speak to it, but I was there in Nashville with your parents, and I'll never forget it when your mom yelled, Kim, from the other room. And she came through with her laptop, and it was because of the earthquake. And she said, we need to help rescue these children. We need to help rescue these children that are being, you know, devastated by this region. And your dad looked at me and he looked at her. And, you know, your mom's like, she's an intense creature. We love her for it. She's very intense. But she was like a dog with a bone, man. She wouldn't let it go. And then we look at what happened and what ended up happening. And obviously I'll let you talk about that. But I was there that night. We'd done an incredible evening in Nashville. It was actually the night that your dad prophesied about Esther. And it was after then that we went out, and then when we got home, your mom came out and started talking about this, and she was on a mission. When your mother gets onto a mission, there is no moving her. There is no shaking her. There is no distracting her. And she was on a mission that she was going to do something about the children in Asia. And we see that link.
Yes, that's right. And you know what he does? I remember it very well, the Esther prophecy, because he referred to it in the prophecy, where he said, this that's happened in Japan. He actually made a direct reference to it.
Yes.
And he was talking about agreements between nations, specifically China. And you'll say that you never dreamed this would happen.
Yes.
And so interesting to me, too, because that's what we've seen a lot this year is Trump trying to negotiate with China and to make deals with China and then even Japan. So it's interesting the way it's all kind of interconnected. And yes, my parents ended up, what started their path to adopting my 5 brothers and sisters that they adopted when I was already, by the time they were adopting my siblings, I was pregnant with their first grandchild. But it all started with that earthquake in Japan. And my mother was so deeply impacted by seeing the devastation and learning from watching this, obviously because, number one, they knew Dad had prophesied it. So then they're watching it, and then they're seeing on the news all these children separated from their parents, have lost their parents, and she did. God put that on her heart. She said, Kim, we've got to do something to help these children. And that started them on a path that did not end up with them adopting Japanese children, because Japanese do not allow that. They don't allow adoptions outside of Japan. But through investigating that and trying to see how they could help, and they did raise money to help, and they went there, but my mom had this on her heart because she realized there were these orphans. And what happened was she started to meet the right people, and the doors, God just did this, the doors started to open. And because of the ministry and the platform that my parents had built in the House of Destiny Network, they had the reach and the ability to get information out to people very easily. And so they began to raise awareness about what was happening in China. And what was happening in China at the time was they had the one-child law, and there were a lot of children who were abandoned, especially special needs children, because they take extra money and care. And of course, your average Chinese family was not able to handle that. And then also they prefer, if they're only going to have one child, to have a son. And so many, many, many little girls were abandoned and ended up in orphanages. And both of my parents in particular, saw these special needs orphans. So bad enough they've lost their parents, but they're also special needs. How could they help? And so they started to find these children and raise money and awareness to get them surgeries that they needed, because many of them needed heart surgeries, a lot of heart surgeries, where, you know, if a child was born with an issue with the heart here in America, for instance, they would immediately get a surgery. These children were not. So their conditions were worsening and worsening. And so even though the adoptions, because they ended up adopting 5 in the process of doing this, there many, many children were helped during this time period. And in the process of doing this, Mom and Dad adopted my 5 siblings. Now, they didn't do it all at once. It was first Shalianne and Mia, and then Kimby, and then Matt, and then Shushu. And so I ended up with 5 additional siblings. But also, I mean, I already had 4 natural siblings, so there's 10 of us all together now because of this. And all of it began with that earthquake in Japan. And even though they're not from Japan, they ended up being Chinese, that was the path God led my mom and dad on. And it did start with my mom, who being the mother, that makes sense. And I remember when she wanted to adopt Shalianne and Mia. First it was just Shalianne, then she saw Mia. And she said to my dad, Kim, I need you to pray about this. And my dad was saying, you know, Jane, we're getting up there in years. I'm not sure if we should be doing this. Surely we can, you know, he wasn't sure. And she said, you go to your garden and you pray. And you pray and you see. So he went to his garden and he asked God if this was what they should do. And a very unusual thing happened to him. He was standing in his prayer garden, he's praying, and 2 hummingbirds flew in front of his face and just hovered in front of his face. And he realized, the 2 little girls, that was his answer. And so that's when the journey began. And we are still on that journey. Matt is now 18. Shalianne, almost 18. Mia, 17. Kimby is 14. Shushu is 14. I think that I've got those ages right there, but that's about right. And what ended up being really a beautiful thing was that I had my daughter at the same time that they were adopting. And so my daughter is the same age as Shushu and Kimby, and they're all in the same grade at the same school. And so, you know, it's ended up also, you know, at the time we didn't know we were going to lose Dad, obviously. And this has been something that has helped my mom, really, on this journey, because all of a sudden she was without my dad. And Mom married my dad young. They had me young. And she really went from her parents to my dad and had spent all of her life with him. So suddenly he was gone. And within 50 days of my dad passing away, so did my grandmother, my mom's mom. So she lost her husband and her mother within 50 days of each other. There was a lot that went on during that time, so I'm not going to go on and on about it because there's a lot more to that story. But the important thing for us to look at here is not just sort of internationally on that broader scale, but all the way down into our very own family. First into our ministry, and then to our family. We were affected, and it all began with that earthquake in Japan. And so that's very interesting and beautiful, the way that God works.
And something to emphasize as well, you know, is that shaking is not the end. It's the beginning of revival and realignment. And everything that Donna just said, this ministry does stand on prophetic truth in times of shaking. And there's a scripture in Haggai 2, 6-9 that says, I will shake all nations, and in this place I will give peace. It's a promise. Peace is a promise for us, even though shaking has occurred. And so when the world shakes, we root ourselves in what cannot be shaken. And something I'm going to encourage you with right now is that when you give, it's an act of faith during instability. There's many ways you can do that. You can click the red link below your player. You can text your gift. You can call it in. There's so many options. But remember this, when the world shakes, we root ourselves in what cannot be shaken, which we know is Christ. We know Christ is the solid rock upon which we stand. And giving is an act of faith during instability. So if you're somebody who's feeling unstable, I know a lot of people are struggling with a lot of things right now. People have been shaken by fear, by financial troubles, by family situations. There's people needing revival in their homes. There's people who feel like they're having personal earthquakes almost in their lives, where we see that shaking reveals what's strong and what isn't, that God is stabilizing his people and that awakening is here. Psalm 125 verse 1 says, those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken. And so I just want to encourage you as you give, if you're struggling with any of those areas in your life, God sees you, God cares about you, you're not alone. And as you do that, it's a defiant act of faith in the face of any shaking that you might feel like you're facing in whatever area it might be. God sees you, he's got you, and he's not going to let you go. So I'm encouraging you to do that today, to give as an act of defiance in the midst of instability. And that's just what I wanted to say really quick.
Thanks, Christy. And yes, you know, those of you who have supported this ministry and continue to support this ministry, you know, it's so unique, this situation. It always has been. And God showed my dad the warriors of the new millennium. And I was 13 years old when that happened. And there are many of you who have followed my dad and supported this ministry since those years, since I was a child. I know a lot of your names. And if not for you, and anyone else who's joined over the years, or maybe it was just last week, but because of that obedience and because you continue to support us, even after my dad died, we have been able to get these prophecies out where my dad and these prophecies would have been forgotten. And because of you, and because you have sacrificed and sown into this very unique ministry, those prophecies went straight to the President of the United States of America, and that's because of you. You know, I was there carrying them around, but I couldn't have done that without you. And so we continue to see, and I never expected this to happen, but we're continuing to see so many prophecies fulfilled. In the year 2025, during the election, all through the Trump experience, so much has been fulfilled, and there's still more. And it's actually incredible how my dad just prophesied. God took him, and then those prophecies began to be fulfilled. And so sharing these prophecies, it doesn't make a difference if you hear the prophecies, but if you don't hear the prophecies, it doesn't make any, you know, they're locked away and no one would know. But because of you, because of your support, people all over the world have been introduced not only to Kim Clement, but to prophecy. And it is a beautiful gift of the Holy Spirit that has been given to us, but especially in this season. This is a season when we need to understand the prophetic and we need to be discerning. Because with the technology and the social media and the way information travels so quickly now, you'd think we wouldn't, but we need to really have an extra level of discernment, and understanding the prophetic is very important. And that is something that we can certainly give you, not only with the example of my dad, but with his teachings. So those of you who partner with us, it has been just an incredible journey. We started this new partnership, the Prophecy Vault, last year because we needed to digitize so much of the footage we have of my dad. And because of those of you who partnered with us, we've been able to do that. And so it's just a beautiful experience that we've had together. And it's just amazing to see these prophecies being fulfilled, and also the deeper understanding of what God is doing in this time. And so I know, Christy, that we have another prophecy here to play, though.
You know,
from 2015.
We do, Donna, and there's actually so much more that there is to say about all of this. I'm actually wondering if we should wait and do this for people and play the segment and actually focus this entire thing on a show that we start the new year with. I don't know what you think, but really kicking it off for the sake of time. I think that I know we're kind of just doing this on the spur of the moment, but we've covered so much today and there's so much more here, and I don't want to rush through it because it's such a powerful thing that your dad did. So maybe we could tell people to stay tuned, and I know we've got a special partner segment today that you're going to be doing. I'm wondering if we should tell people to stay tuned. I know next week you're going to be on with Charlie, then we've got Trey Smith coming, and I'm like, maybe we should just start the new year with a bang by looking at this prophecy of your dad's from Nepal, which leads into Firepoint and stuff, so that we're not rushed. I don't know what you think, but I'm hoping that makes everybody feel a little bit anticipatory about coming back in the new year.
No, I think so, and I think maybe we might want to do a little bit more research because I think we're going to be seeing more in the area of earthquakes and volcanoes.
Yes,
God has really put it on my heart to pay attention, and as soon as I started doing that, we had that series of volcanoes that happened. And like I said before, the volcanoes and the earthquakes are connected to that new energy.
Yes.
And so, yes, I think we
should watch it.
Yes. We should cover...
let's watch this over the next couple of weeks and then cover it the first week of the new year. That's what I think. It's full of hope and just shows, again, God's track record.
Absolutely.
That's just my thought.
No, I actually agree with you, Christy. I think that we should look a little deeper into the earthquakes because there was the Nepal earthquake and Dad was sending teams over there and all sorts of things. So there's a lot more to this. And so, yes, I agree, Christy. Let's come back and have a look at the earthquakes. Everybody watching right now, you do that too. You can email us at codebreakers@houseofdestiny.org. And I want to hear what you have to say about the volcanoes and the earthquakes, especially in connection to a new energy source. And I know a lot of you have really good information that you can share with us. And I know that I'm going to be bringing Walter Blagage back on. And Walter Blagage was recently on Codebreakers Live with me. And I've been talking to him this week, and there's some things he wants to share. So we may be able to put together something quite interesting for the new year. So yes, let's continue this in the new year. Everybody, over Christmas, keep your eye on the volcanoes and on the earthquakes. What is connected to it? Where are they happening? All of these things are very, very important. And so I think that we may be on a very interesting journey together. And it's all also connected not only to the new energy source and the death to debt that Dad prophesied again and again, but this great move of God, this revival that was beyond a revival, a revolution that Dad saw, where they'll say, Jesus is cool. And the young people will say it, and they'll take over the internet. And, we're already seeing that happen. We're already seeing God moving in a new and different way with the young people. And that's exactly what we need, especially in America, especially in the West right now. We've been through a lot. We've been through a lot, and God has come through for us. And so anybody who might be feeling discouraged, oh, well, the economy's not good yet, we thought when Trump came in, everything would be more affordable. That's been the word this week, is affordability. It will, and I truly believe that. And I think that we just need to be a little bit patient because God chose President Trump for this moment, and he's not going to do everything perfectly, and he's not going to say all the right things. But Dad was very specific when he prophesied about President Trump, and that was what he would do with the economy and with the border, and that he would honor Christ. And we are seeing those things again and again and again. And so I'm anticipating that we will have a very interesting discussion after the holiday season. We're going to come back. So be looking for that in the new year, because Christy and I have some interesting things to share, and I know you will too. So don't forget to email us if you have anything you want to share with us, especially about earthquakes, volcanoes, and the new energy source and the death to debt. Because, as Christy mentioned, tied in there with that Nepal earthquake and those prophecies, it's Firepoint. Firepoint has to do with the new energy source. It's all connected. And those of you who know, you already know. Those who don't, we have some interesting things to share with you. So that's it for us today, Christy. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And for everybody watching, thanks for joining us. And we will see you next time. Hello, friends. I'm Donna Clement Petrushka, and I am honored to invite you to something truly extraordinary, the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Now you can gain unprecedented access to my father's entire digitized video archive. Every prophetic moment, every powerful teaching, every anointed worship session is now available to you in the Prophecy Vault. Plus, I'm excited to share that my dad's special School of the Prophets teachings are included, offering you deep, transformative lessons on hearing God's voice and understanding his revelations. Your partnership is crucial. Not only will you gain access to these incredible resources, but you'll also help us continue the vital work of preserving, digitizing, and adding new Kim Clement material to the archives. I'm inviting you to step into the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Let's embark on this journey of revelation together, and I can't wait to see you inside. We have Andrew Sorcini from Beverly Hills Precious Metals with us today. Someone has a 401k. Can they take some of that and purchase gold as an investment for their future?
They can, and it's a great way to do it, because if you have an IRA, a government TSP account, a 401k from a company that you used to work at but don't work at anymore, or if you still work at the company and you're over 59 and a half, these can be rolled over into a precious metals IRA. And if you were to speak to your financial advisor about it, they'll tell you, oh, this is a taxable event. They'll tell you things like gold and silver are volatile. But really, the thing is, they don't want you to get into precious metals because it doesn't benefit them monetarily. I'm here to tell you that your accounts can be rolled into a precious metals IRA without it being a taxable event. You would own real gold and silver that is stored in a third-party depository that's insured in a lockbox with your name on it.
So if someone goes to bh-pm.com, is that the correct website? Okay, and that's going to be on the bottom of the screen. If they go there today, what do they need to do?
Okay, so there's an online form there, and the form, almost every page on the website has the online form. So you just fill in your first name, last name, email address, telephone number, say that Kim Clement sent you, or the House of Destiny. We'll know what you mean. And in the notes section, be as detailed as you can. Sometimes people put things in there like, I'm a complete novice. I really don't understand precious metals. I've been wanting to understand. I want to invest, but really I need more information first. Then put that in there. If you're someone that's been investing in gold and silver for years and really don't need a consultation, you just want to check prices, then put that in there.
Everybody watching, if you are interested in precious metals, this is where you want to go. Thanks again.
Thank you.